Okay. Well, perhaps I'll just do with two to begin with. One is a lady who was born blind, Vicky. You'll find a lot of research is being done on her. You'll find out, you can find that on the internet. And Vicky, for the very first time she saw anything was when a spirit left her body. And suddenly she could see. She'd never seen anyone, she'd never seen anything. She'd lived this totally blind life. And then she met with Jesus later, and she described him, which is very interesting because, as I say, she'd never seen him. So her descriptions of the afterlife and also of him were very sort of interesting because they were very penetrating. And when she, then at the end, she was told if she wanted children, she could come back and she'd be given children. And she said she'd always wanted children of her own. So that was an exciting prospect. And this is what I find particularly interesting, is that when she came back into her body had been blind and she was still blind. And she knows that while she's living her life as a blind mother on earth, with at least 2, maybe more children, she looks forward to a time in the afterlife when she'll be able to see perfectly and see the people she loves perfectly. So I think that touched me. There are many others. One of the early ones was a teacher at the school where I was, who had a near-death experience. And her one I found interesting because of the influence her experience had on the 2 surgeons who were looking after her. And they came and visited her, and Rhoda, that's her name. I've used her name in the book. Normally I don't use names unless I have permission, but I've got a complete permission. Her name's Rhoda Fryer, and she is a very forthright lady. You don't muck around with Rhoda. You know, she's very sort of strong lady. And when the surgeons came to visit her after the operation, she spoke directly to them, and she described what had happened. Now, while they were prepping themselves before the operation, the prepping in this particular hospital in Southern Africa was in a separate room. They had a wash basin there, and they washed their hands there to get ready for the operation. And they, one surgeon took his ring off, and he put it in a certain spot on the basin. And then he and his buddy, or the other surgeon, they were talking about a fishing trip they'd just been on. Meanwhile, she had died, unknown to them, I suppose, but she had died on the operating table, and the nurses were frantically trying to revive her. So when they came to visit her, she said, "Why were you talking about such a trivial thing as a fishing operation when you had a patient on the table who'd actually died?" And they said, well, you know, they gave their reasons. They didn't know, and they were doing the best they could, and so on. And they said, "But how did you see us?" She said, "Well, my spirit had moved, and I was watching from above." And she said, "And I saw you take your wedding ring off, and you put it at such and such." And she said he went white, because he knew she had to be in that room, not in the operating theatre, but in that room to be able to provide that detail. And so that had an influence on me too. There have been a lot of other cases where, for example, people have described things that they couldn't possibly have known if their spirit had remained in their body. They have to have been an observer. There are many of those. But this is one of the first ones I came across, and I found that interesting.